All right, welcome to the Diary of an Agent podcast. I'm your host, Max Hobson, here today with Hamish Naylor. Hamish, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into real estate, and what your favorite thing about real estate is currently.
Well, thanks for having me on today, Max. I'll start by how I got into real estate. I was fresh out of high school, 17, turning 18. I had been enrolled into Queensland University of Technology to complete uh, a property economics course. I then started to learn that it wasn't for me. I then decided to go, okay, if I wanted to do real estate more hands-on and to focus on residential, I think I need to start doing more business-oriented university. So I now am completing a Bachelor of Business in Marketing. I think right now my favorite part of real estate is just making connections. I'm still very fresh into the industry, and I think connections is probably the biggest thing. No matter how old you are, no matter how much experience you have within the industry, connections is probably one of the most integral parts to a successful real estate agent and business.
Yeah. So you're talking about connections with other agents, or you're talking about connections just with homeowners as well?
I think to start off, I think it's good to have connections with agents, particularly if you're someone like me who wants to work in real estate but is unsure on which agency to work for. It's always good to start having those conversations with agents that you are either looking up to, working within your area, or have general interests like yourself who have either gone to the same school, studied the same sort of university courses as you. And then from there, when you do find an agency to work for, it's then when you start to make your mark and make those connections with homeowners and buyers. And that also allows you to become such a vital and integral sort of individual within a company because you can tell them, I've made connections with X, Y, and Z. I've already got these connections to use.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And look, a lot of my job as well revolves around that, just having lots of connections with all different agents across all different agencies. So I
Mm.
understand that. So typical day for you, you're obviously balancing multiple things, uni, your real estate, and anything else you do?
Not at the moment, to be honest. That's pretty much all I've got, and I've got a full docket between both of those. Obviously, with university, I'm doing that virtually, so I do that through online classes through Zoom. I do that 3 days a week, and I work 3 days a week, and obviously have Sunday to rest, recharge, and recover. A general day in the life for me for work. I'm up at just before 5, generally 4:30,
Yeah,
4:45. I'm
you're
in
an early riser, aren't you?
Absolutely. Learn from the best of you, Max.
Yeah.
So up at around about 4:30, quarter to 5, in the gym by 5. I'm then in the office by 8. From there, I set out my daily plan. So a lot of my work consists of prospecting. I'm looking online at properties that have sold. So obviously trying to get a bit of knowledge about your area and sort of the property prices and sort of events and activity that is beneficial to my role. So I'll check that, write a few notes down, and then get straight into the calls. And then obviously finish the day on a high by having the best calls. And I do that strategically. I have two good calls in the morning and two good calls in the afternoon. So you start off well and you finish off well.
Yeah, yeah. Have you found that well, I'll rephrase this question actually. Do you think that for someone getting into real estate, it's really important to be prospecting and learning to talk on the phone?
Absolutely. And I think I'm lucky for me. I work with Place, and they've got such a good guidance program and such a good nurture and mentorship around you. So, for those people that are looking to get into real estate, it's always good to surround yourself with people that can be an added benefit to you in where you want to go. And particularly if you are like myself, balancing university and balancing real estate and work, it's always good to have those people that are supporting your dreams. I know a lot of people, maybe not in real estate, but if you are at university and you want to pursue a certain career path, university can be either a driving factor or a limitation to
Mm.
your immediate success, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's great. It's like finding a tribe. So,
Exactly right.
what did you find as the most challenging part for prospecting when you started off? Because I know a lot of agents, it can be their fall point. they can't prospect, whether that be on social media, because you can use social media as a way to prospect, but also just picking up the phone. What did you find is the most challenging part of that, and how did you overcome it?
I think the most challenging part is sort of taking out the idea that you're calling a complete stranger that you have never met in your life, yet they own a two, three, $4 million home. And I think that is such a widely accepted idea, and a lot of people perceive that as a bit daunting. For me, that is a driver, and that's what I love and what I love to do in my everyday sort of activities. But to get to your question, Max, one of the biggest sort of limitations, and one of the things that I was a bit hesitant at first was, I think if I have one good call, why can't every call like that be? Why can't every call be
Yeah.
like that? And I think you need to take each call as it comes. Obviously, you have good calls and you have some not so good calls. So it's just recentering yourself and really trying to remain who you are and to remain in that mindset that you have a job to do, no matter of how the other person on the line is treating you, acting, saying whatever. You have a job to do. You do it to the best of your ability, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. Have you, I know, maybe not you personally, but with Place, have they been working with social media and stuff? Do they use social media to do some of their prospecting as well?
Look, Place in itself has multiple social media accounts for each office. So
Mhm.
they don't generally
Just
do
quickly,
social.
are you Place Bulimba?
So I'm Place Bulimba.
Yep.
It's also called the Place One Group. So it services Bulimba, Cannon Hill, Carindale, and Camp Hill.
Yep.
So it's a very large sort of corporation that works within those specific suburbs. But in the office, I'm in Place Bulimba. So, in terms of Place Bulimba's social media, it doesn't necessarily prospect out. It's more so informing its followers on upcoming auctions, new properties that have hit the market, properties that have sold. Whereas individual agents who have their own social media, they can use social media as a tool to prospect rather than going traditional and old school by cold calling people.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you started doing that as well? Are you going to be using social media in the future, do you reckon?
Right now, I'm still trying to find my bearings in terms of prospecting. I've only been prospecting for 6 months, and I feel individually I have great cut through on the phones, which makes me such a valuable asset to the business. Thinking in the future, social media is going to be a game changer, whether you like it or not, and not just for real estate, but for every
Everything.
single business, every industry. Exactly right. So I think you need to adapt to those vehicles in order to become successful at whatever job, whatever industry, whatever realm you are working in. Real estate will be one of those things, and social media within real estate is one of those things that will never disappear or dissolve.
Yeah, and especially for people like you who have a bit of a personality, it's great to be able to show that off on social media as well with video. So if you're an interesting person and you've got a story to tell, you can really use it to your advantage.
100%. And that's what makes you so personable with potential clients. They see you for who you are.
Yeah, exactly. People hire people, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So what has been your proudest moment so far in your real estate journey?
My proudest moment so far in my real estate journey, I think, I think probably just being in the Place Bulimba office, starting from helping out in our auction assistance team, preparing up auctions, attending auctions. I think really changing from being in such a physically demanding role into a more hands-on and executive and corporate oriented role. I think that's probably been my proudest sort of moment, and just seeing how far I've come within 2 years at working at Place, and even just mini milestones. Obviously, you get your first appraisal, you get your first property that was your lead. So you have all
Yeah.
these very small but very monumental milestones. But I think the biggest one for me would be the change from being auction orientated into a more in office sales orientated sort of change.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to ask you a few more questions before we head off. But in the next 5 years, where do you see yourself within
Next
your
five
current
years,
position? Are you going to, do you reckon, stay where you are doing this sort of stuff? Are you going to start off generating your own team? Like what do you reckon? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, from both a university aspect and a professional real estate aspect, I'm hoping to have university completed. I probably will, but just
Yeah.
hopefully. Um, Obviously, professionally, I'd like to become what we call a sales associate, which is almost like the next step above apprentice. So, right now, I am almost in my apprenticeship year, learning how to prospect, learning how to manage databases, speak with people, both owners and buyers. Going on to your point, I don't think I would want to run my own sort of team yet because that takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and obviously a lot of experience. So I think I would like to form into my own team and really become my own person.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, next one is I want to see 3 tips for someone like you when you were starting out that you would give them on starting their journey in real estate.
So, 3 tips. My first one and probably biggest one is be yourself and be unique. Obviously, I look a bit of a character. I have a interesting physical appearance, and I think whilst that may be a downside to many other realms, like modeling, for example, with real estate, you harness that and you become your own person. So I think being yourself and being unique, number one.
Makes
Number
you
two,
authentic.
exactly right.
Yeah,
Number two is never stop learning. At Place, we have a learn it all culture rather than a know it all culture. So much so that I even have what I call my real estate red book. And this book has every single real estate oriented podcast, every single little training session I do, and it's got all my knowledge about real estate in there. And if I'm ever confused on something, I write it down and I look back on it because obviously you need to learn and you can't stop learning in this business because so much changes. So I think really invest the time to sit down and learn. And number three, I think would be find either an agent or an office or both that can help harness your skills and transition you into being someone who you never thought you could be possibly you could able to become, if that makes
yeah,
sense. Like for me, I never thought that I would be in this position so early on rather than wait 10 years and I'm still in the same position. So you really need to find people that have are like-minded to you and can
yeah.
really harness your skills for both the business and both you personally.
Yeah, you got to find similar people to you. And there's that overused quote that I really love, which is um, what is it? You're similar to the 5 people who are closest to you. Like if you find those 5 people that are who you want to be and you surround yourself with
Mm,
them, then you're most likely going to, rub off on their habits.
absolutely. Show me 5 of your friends and I
Yeah.
will show you your future.
Yeah, yeah, that. Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you for jumping on, Hamish. I think people find a lot of really good and useful tips out of this, especially the new agents who are just coming into the industry. So, thank you for jumping on. And I hope that the next few months for you are really good and you pick up lots of sales.
Thank you so much, Max. All the best and thanks for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Hamish.